Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everybody. Today we have lesson 7 in chapter 4, Triangle Congruence Cpctc. Before we start, we have 4 questions as a warming up. Number 1. If we have triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF, then angle A is congruent to which angle? So to solve this question, look at the sentence. Here, angle A is the first letter in the first triangle. So it's congruent to the first letter in the second triangle, which is D. So here the answer is angle D. Then BC. BC is the second and third letter in the first triangle. So are congruent to the second and third letter in the second triangle, which is the side EF. So the answer is angle D and the side EF. Now, second one. What is the distance between the 2 points 3 and 4 and -1 and 5? Remember the distance formula? We have root between 2 parentheses. We have x2 minus x1 all power 2 plus y2 minus y1 all power 2. So if you substitute by x1 3, y1 4, x2 -1, y2 5, you will find the answer is root 70. Now, in the figure opposite, if angle 1, this angle, is congruent to angle 2, why is the line A is parallel to the line B? Yes, because the converse of alternate interior angles theorem, because angle 1 and angle 2 are alternate interior angles and they are congruent. So this is the converse of the alternate interior angles theorem. Now, question number 4, list methods used to prove two triangles congruent. Yes, SSS, if the 3 sides of the first triangle are congruent to their corresponding 3 sides of the second triangle, so the 2 triangles are congruent. Also, SAS, 2 sides and the angle included between. The third case, ASA, means 2 angles and the side which is included between the 2 angles. And AAS, 2 angles and side is not included between the 2 angles. And the last one, which is HL, means the hypotenuse and 1 leg. Hypotenuse and 1 leg. In our lesson today, we will use Cpctc to prove parts of triangles are congruent. Let's know first what the meaning of Cpctc. Cpctc is an abbreviation for the phrase corresponding, letter C, parts, which is B, of congruent triangles are congruent. It means if I have 2 triangles which are congruent, so the corresponding parts of the 2 triangles are also congruent. Okay? It can be used as justification in a proof after you have proven 2 triangles congruent. Okay? We know that the 5 cases use corresponding parts to prove triangles congruent. So Cpctc uses congruent triangles to prove corresponding parts. Let's see example 1. A and B are on the edges of a ribbon. What is AB? So in this figure, we have two triangles, and we know side and second side of the first triangle, first and second side of the second triangle, and third side. So we have also one pair of opposite angles congruent because they are vertical angles. You remember vertical angles like the letter X. So here we have two sides, and the angle which is included between are congruent to their corresponding parts. Two sides also, here the side which is 10, we have another side 10 in the second triangle, and here 15 and the second side 15, and the angle between is equal to or congruent to the angle between in the second triangle. So this case is SAS. So we can say that the two triangles are congruent because SAS. Okay, after we finished, we can write that by Cpctc. So the third side pair is also congruent. What is the third side? The third side in the first triangle, which is AB. And the third side here is 18. So AB is equal to 18 miles. Now we have check it out one. Now check your answer. Now let's see example 2. In this example, read the given well. We have YW bisects the segment XZ, and also XY is congruent to YZ. So prove that the angle XYW, XYW means this angle is congruent to the angle ZYW, which is this angle. Okay, so to prove this statement that the two angles are congruent, we should prove first that the two triangles are congruent. So if you look at the given, what the meaning of YW bisects the segment XZ? It means it divides the segment into two congruent parts. So we have XW is congruent to WZ. So we have from the given YW bisects XZ. This is given. So we can write that XW is congruent to WZ. This is the meaning or the definition of bisects. And also XY is congruent to YZ. This is given. And the side YW is congruent to itself, congruent to YW also. So the two triangles now are congruent because we know that the three sides of the first are congruent to the three sides of the second. Okay, let's see here. We start with YW bisects the segment XZ, and this is given. So it divides the segment XZ into two congruent parts. So XW is congruent to ZW. And by the definition of bisector, this is the definition of bisector, okay? And we have another given and reflexive property of congruency that a side is congruent to itself. So from 1 to 3, we can conclude that the two triangles are congruent by SSS. Now, we can say that measure angle X is congruent to measure angle Z, or measure angle measure angle Y is congruent to measure angle Y, or measure angle W is congruent to measure angle W. So I can write it like this: measure angle Y, which is XYW, is congruent to measure angle Y in the second triangle, which is ZYW. We depend on Cpctc, means corresponding parts, yes, are congruent. Now, check it out. 2, stop the video and try to solve it alone. I think it's the same question. So, can here solve it like this. PR bisects the angle, bisects the two angles, this is given, and PR is the same as RP, reflexive property of congruency, and this is the definition of bisector. Yeah. This sentence from the given, this sentence is from the given. So the two triangles are congruent by ASA because the side is included between the two angles. And now by Cpctc, we can take a part of the triangle or the sentence that PQ is congruent to PS. PQ is congruent to PS. And this is the required. We have here, if we work backward when planning a proof to show that two lines are parallel, look for a pair of angles that are congruent. Then look for triangles that contain these angles. Let's see example 3, given NO is parallel to MP, two sides are parallel, MO and MP, and the angle N is congruent to angle B. Okay, prove that the other two sides are parallel, MN and PO. If you think about this question, what we can conclude from this given that NO is parallel to MP. Yes, we have this side joining the two parallel segments. So this angle is congruent to this angle. They are alternate interior angles. So they are congruent because we have parallel. So we can write that measure angle NOM equals measure angle OMP. And also we have measure angle N it is congruent to measure angle P, it's a given. And also we can say that the third angle here is congruent to the third angle by the third angle theorem. Is there any side? Yes, we have the side MO is congruent to itself by reflexive property of congruency. So we have here two triangles are congruent, and by using Cpctc, we can conclude that this side is congruent to this side, and this angle is congruent to this angle. So we can say that MN is parallel to OP. Okay. or we can conclude that this figure is a parallelogram, so the two sides are also congruent. So they are parallel like the required. Let's see the proof. Try to, before you write the proof, try to draw this figure again out and then watch the video. We start the proof with given. We know that angle N is congruent to angle P and the segment NO is parallel to the segment MP, and this is given. Then from the parallel, we said we can write a pair of alternate interior angles by they are congruent by the theorem of alternate interior angles. Then MO is congruent to itself, and this is a reflexive property of congruency. So the two triangles are congruent by two angles and the side not included, or you can depend on the third angle theorem and you write here that the third angle is congruent to the third angle, so you can change this case to write it SAS. So in this question we can solve by two ways. We can prove that by this case two angles and side not included, or if you write here the third angle theorem and you write that third angle is congruent to third angle, so we can use ASA. Then after we prove that two triangles are congruent, we can use Cpctc. So measure angle NMO is congruent to measure angle POM. Okay, and because that this pair of angle is alternate interior angles, so by the converse of the alternate interior angles theorem, the two lines must be parallel. Okay, now check it out 3. Now let's check your answers. We have here point J is the midpoint of KM. It means this part KJ is congruent to this part JM. And also this point is midpoint of LN, so JL is congruent to JN. And we know that this angle is equal to this angle or congruent because they are vertical angles. So this triangle is congruent to this triangle. This triangle is congruent to this triangle. So by Cpctc, can prove that this angle K is congruent to this angle in the two triangles. So the two lines are parallel. Now example 4, it's a very easy question. What about if we have the coordinates of the vertices of two triangles like we have given DEF GHI? Prove that the triangle DEF, or the angle, sorry, prove that the angle DEF is congruent to the angle GHI. Step number 1, we'll plot the points on the coordinate plane. So we have now two triangles. The question is to prove that the angle DEF, look, DEF means this angle, is congruent to the angle GHI, which is this angle. So we need to prove that the two triangles are congruent. What is the given? We don't know any angle, and also we don't know any side length. So what should we do? Yes, we studied before when we have the coordinates of points like this, so we have rule. By using this rule, we can find the length of the segment if we know the two endpoints of the segment, which is the distance formula. So we can write we can apply the distance formula, and we can find the length of the 6 sides of the two triangles. So DE, it means look at D and E. You can name the point D x1, y1 and the point E x2, y2. Or the opposite, you can name the point E x1 and y1 and the point D x2 and y2. Both are right. Then substitute in this formula and calculate the result. It will be 2 root 5. So by using this formula, we can measure the distance between D and E, or we can find the length of the segment DE. Also, we can repeat this step with EF and GH. So, and also DF, GI, and HI. Now look at the answers. We have root 13 is equal to root 13. 2 root 5 is equal to 2 root 5. Root 5 is equal to root 5. So we have DE is congruent to GH. EF is congruent to HI. DF is congruent to GI. Therefore, the triangle or the first triangle DEF is congruent to the second triangle GHI. By which case? Yes, by the case SSS. Now we can apply Cpctc. That because two triangles are congruent, so we can say that angle D is congruent to angle G, or angle E is congruent to angle H, or angle F is congruent to angle I. So we need here angle E, which is DEF. Angle E is congruent to angle H, which is GHI, by Cpctc. Okay. Now we have checked out for. Let's check your answers. This is lesson quiz. You can solve it and send it to me. See you tomorrow, inshallah. Goodbye.